Hello, fellow indies, and welcome newcomers to Indies on Indie. I'm your host, Patrick Poe, and if this is your first time here, thanks for listening in. We've got our longest episode yet for you. It was a great conversation, and Evan had tons to talk about. I honestly think we could do a whole nother episode, and Evan still wouldn't run out of things to talk about. Before we get to that, I know you're curious, what's going on with me? Well, the show at the Rhino that I've been talking about went great. I couldn't have asked for a more receptive audience, and the venue is amazing. The Rhino's a newish venue in North Kansas City, and it's connected to Colony KC, which is a brewery and a coffee shop. It's really an amazing place. I had one of the beers that they brew there in-house, and oh man, I'm gonna have to go back there just to get that beer again. It's called Goes the Distance, and I can't even explain how good it was. It's a bit of a sour beer, and I love that. And if sour beer sounds interesting to you, go to Colony and check it out, buy the beer. They're donating part of the proceeds of all the Goes the Distance sales towards breast cancer research and awareness. Drink beer, fight cancer. That sounds good. They don't even pay me to say that. I just really like that beer. And the venue. They've got another comedy show there November 1st, so go check it out. Check out that venue and check out that amazing beer. Besides the comedy show, I've been doing a lot of filming. We had a couple of outdoor shoots to finish for the feature film The Way It Goes before it becomes winter. It's already getting pretty cold outside, so that was fun. Had to shoot some of the green trees before they become brown. We also had to cancel a shoot due to weather. So to not waste a night, we at IX put together a short sketch for Halloween. The whole thing went from concept to an almost finished, edited product in 24 hours, and we'll be releasing that on Halloween. Also, we've started helping out Baron Michael Redman, a good friend over here at IX Productions, on his newest film project, What Comes Around. We spent 8 hours in the cold for him 2 nights ago, getting some wonderful outdoor footage for his new piece, so be sure to be on the lookout for this project. He's got a killer cast, and he's really trying to up his game for this production. I can tell just from the one day on set that he means business with this one. Also, we recently got over 1,000 likes on our IX Productions Facebook page, which was a cool moment. We've been building this thing for years, and it feels like a big deal getting ourselves out there. But turns out that at 1,000 likes, nothing magical happens. It's still just about continually creating good content, which we're dedicated to. Lastly, before we get to the show, we have Laugh KC, our quarterly live comedy show at the Westport Coffee House Theater, coming up on November 2nd. We've got a great lineup, so please come out, support local comedy. The show starts at 7:30, tickets are only $5, and you get to see 6 of Kansas City's great local comedians. Talking about local comics, our guest today is one of the comedians and co-founders behind the amazingly creative comedy game show ListOff. They are having their Tournament of Champions this November, so they'll be out at Tapcade in the Crossroads every Tuesday in November with winners of this past year's ListOff shows, competing for the title of ListOff Champion. It's a free show, so there's really no reason not to show up. Also, our guest today is the host of the Westport Weekly Comedy Show. It's an amazing show. It happens every Monday at the Westport Coffee House Theater. It's one of the best places to see comedy in this city. Tickets are only $5 for 1 or $10 for 4. If you do the math there, the $10 for 4 is way better. So bring out friends. Also, it's free to perform. So if you think you have what it takes to be a comic, come out to Westport Monday nights and find out. All right, let's get to the show. This is me and Evan Christian Goldt. I was trying to figure out, do I interview
the pair of us?
just one of you? Do I do one then the other? Or do I interview you as a pair? And that was a conundrum I hit. And then when I actually texted you and was like, let's do this thing, you were super like, I don't know if I want to do it.
I don't remember getting a text. I don't remember a conversation. I just remember this Monday when you brought it up. That's all I remember.
There's a group Facebook Messenger that
that
is between me, you, and Nick. And I'm like, hey, man, I want to do...
Well, the phone's dead. I can't even check.
I can't even check. But it exists. And I was like, I want to do a ListOff thing. I want to help you guys promote the show. Let's do a podcast. And like, you were like, yeah, let's talk about it. And then Nick was immediately
yeah. Okay, I'm remembering this. So here's... are we recording?
Yeah.
So what that comes down to is I was at work. And when I'm at work, if I see a message, I usually don't respond to it.
Makes sense.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, because I'm going to respond to it later, but that rarely happens. So I was like, okay, it's Patrick. I should just respond. I got a second. So I responded. And when it's a thing that involves me and Nick, I'm really careful.
You didn't want to like make a decision for Nick.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
I try really hard to not like just assume he's going to be into something.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But so like I got that, and then Nick was like, I would love to.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, Nick definitely wants to.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll get.
See, I bet there was a first draft where I was like, that sounds great. Like, because I remember being like, yeah, dude, that's exciting. Because I'm always down to cast. But yeah, it really comes down to like, because Nick and I have been working together for such a long time in one capacity or another. And there's been kind of a seesaw of like, I'll step on his toes or he'll step on my toes. And so I'm probably the bigger offender than him just because I'm louder. And so I try to be more conscious about it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I just, at first I was like, oh man, maybe Evan doesn't want to do it. Like,
Not at all.
I'll get Nick scheduled. I'll do Nick, and then maybe I'll talk to Evan and see
I'm
if he'll
excited
do
to
it.
be here. I'm also really excited that we got to do our own separate episodes.
Good.
Yeah, I think
Good.
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear.
If Bryce and Jared get to do 2 separate episodes, then I think Nick and I have earned it.
I was gonna do all 3 of them for the comedy festival. I was gonna do
Yeah.
Bryce, Jared, and Richard, and then it just never
happened like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't. Richard and Jared do their own podcast.
It's a radio show.
Oh yeah, it's technically like it's internet radio, right?
Yeah. It's a very odd line between podcast and radio.
because it's live.
Yes,
but
it's only on the internet.
The internet, yeah.
So who
knows?
That's murky grounds of what it is.
Right.
But I don't think it's a podcast because you can't listen to old episodes.
That makes sense. Yeah. So if it's not archived, then it's like a live show then.
Yeah. So it's radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd call it radio. I mean, it's radio.
Yeah, it's radio. Yeah. And there's a third one actually. There's like even though it's called These Two Idiots. Yeah. It's the 2 of them and Nightmare.
Nightmare. Yeah, I've met Nightmare.
But I think he's more just like a host DJ.
I think he's the guy who runs the station that they're on, the Black Sky Radio, I think is his. So I think that's the...
he's the person that reins them in from being too dumb.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
He was a nice enough guy. I only did his show one time. And
did you do one of the
Make Me Laugh? Was what it was called.
Oh, that was him too?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he put that on. I had only been doing comedy for about, I don't know, like 9 months at that point. That was, I just remember, I remember that show because it was the first time I ever got to do 10 minutes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's a moment you remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially because it went so badly.
Oh, God, did it?
It was a horrible show, yeah. I did not do well.
Yeah? What do you think was the problem on that?
Oh, well, the fact that I probably wasn't good, I mean, like, there's just this given thing that I kind of underlines any conversation I have about stand-up or my experiences with it is that I'm not good yet. Like, so there's that. And then behind that, it was just, I just don't feel like that bar is very well designed for comedy, and
it's more of a music venue.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, because it's such a large room, and it's full of pool tables and a bar, and
there are
TVs,
a million distractions.
The ceilings are high, and the stage is nice. It's a nice stage, but it's just it's like most of the people are and it's a restaurant. I mean, it's huge.
Yes. Yeah.
So
there's like a quarter of the room that's part of the comedy show, and there are 3/4 of the room that you have no control over.
Right.
And that's never the best situation.
No.
So.
It's, yeah. I thought Nightmare's a nice guy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So you grew up around this area?
I sure did. Well, a little south of here.
Yeah.
I grew up in Overland Park. I lived in the same house, for 22 years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Are your parents still there?
because my
Yeah.
my
Is
mom's
your mom still there?
Yeah, my mom sold the house about 2 years after my dad passed away.
Oh, okay.
It took her a little longer than that. Like, I moved out because we sold the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
She was like, Evan, I'm selling the house
Yeah.
and you need a home.
Oh, it was so strange. I lived there like it's a complicated thing. I moved in with my girlfriend at the time. Like, I moved into her family's house with her. And
That's got to be weird.
it
Was
lasted
it weird?
Yeah, it lasted 5 days.
Oh, geez.
I lasted 5 days there. And then
Was it like you clashing with like her parents? Or
No,
was it,
no,
like,
no, no,
they-
no. I mean, we had been dating for 6.5 years.
Okay.
We
So like this was your like high school sweetheart.
We got together when we were 16, yeah.
Okay.
And so I was 22 and a half.
It's very specific.
Yeah.
You're still so young, you count the half.
Right. But it was like we'd been meaning to move in together for years, but she was going to school out in Springfield, and I didn't want to move to Springfield, and I didn't really have enough money, and I didn't know where I would work down there, and just the thought of moving out of a rent-free situation, like all of it it just didn't make sense to me. And then like I moved in, and we already had so many problems with our relationship, and then she dumped me like 5 days after I moved in, and then
What?
all I felt, Patrick, was relief. That's all I felt. But it was also this very like tense thing where my mom had just gotten herself an apartment. She was already living in this apartment because we had signed the contract on the house, but the house was still technically ours. So I moved back to the house, which we had for another 2 weeks, I think. So I had like a
You had
clock.
like a 2-week window.
Yeah. And in that 2-week window, I had no stove. I had a microwave and a fridge, no stove, and like my room was still
like Hot Pockets 100%.
Yeah,
like
pretty
that's
much.
What
It
you
was
lived on.
Yeah, it was not a fun thing, and yeah, and then that girlfriend, that same girl's like 2 days after, like she dumped me on Friday, and on Monday she was like, "So you want to get back together?" And I was like, No.
She was like, well, I just didn't like living with you.
Yeah. I thought, well, it was, the funny thing is, the straw that broke the camel's back was I went to hang out with Tristan Newell instead of coming home at a reasonable time.
Did you guys go to school with him then?
Tristan?
Yeah.
No, I met him doing comedy.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just trying to like put it together because I feel like...
it's a weird thing because like I went to school with Nick and Katie.
Yeah.
Nick, Katie, and I worked at the New Theater restaurant with Casey.
Yes.
And there's a few other loose ends, like Sarah Hargraves worked at the New Theater with us.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Kevin Amend, if you know him, he worked at the New Theater with us.
I know the name. I've never met him though.
He doesn't really do comedy anymore.
Okay. He did though.
Yeah, for a few months. But he was like a booker. Like he put on shows.
He was doing that right as I started.
Yeah.
So it's like when I started, I was like, oh, that guy's a guy I should probably get to know. And
plenty of people around know his name, like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But yeah, he hasn't been out for, I don't know. Like I don't know the guy anymore, really.
You worked with him.
Yeah. But like, so there was Sarah, Kevin, Casey, Katie, Nick are all people, and I might even be leaving people out that like were attached to me socially somehow.
Okay.
Before
but also
comedy. So yeah, and I know people have like expressed confusion about that in the past, like who's who and how do we know people and blah blah blah.
Well, I just knew that I already knew the like you, Katie, Nick side, and I know how I like learned how you met Casey was at New Theater, and then like just from how often Tristan came up in Nick's like story, I was then like, I wonder if he knows them because they're all about the same age. I wonder.
Yeah. Tristan's 2 years younger than Nick, Katie, and I. Casey's age. But yeah, I didn't meet Tristan until I started doing comedy.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And you started doing comedy
January 2015.
Yeah. So that was after college? No.
I went to Johnson County Community College.
Okay.
Because my mom had this deal with me. My mom's this really, really supportive, like open-minded, cool person.
Yeah, she's a nice lady. I've met your mom.
Yeah, she's great. I really lucked out. And but she had this deal with me. She was like, okay, you can live at home as long as you need to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to charge you rent. I'm not going to charge you anything. but I'm not going to pay for everything. So you got to be making money somehow. You got to have some kind of job. But that can't be the only thing you're doing. She was like, you have to be doing something that's going to be moving your life forward in some way.
Like school or
once
you found comedy.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of just defaulted to college.
Yeah.
Because I just was, pretty unaware of how to live a life.
Yeah.
Like, I knew I had all this raw ambition.
I don't think school teaches you any of that.
No, it really doesn't. I was really actively like opposed to school most of the time I went to it. Like I did as much as I could to spend as much time during the day doing like theater and choir as I could.
Oh yeah, you were a theater kid?
Yeah, and my senior year, in fact, I only had one academic class.
That's awesome.
Like I had Gifted, which is basically just a glorified study hall.
For nerds or for
it's
lower?
No, it's like a high IQ thing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check where you were at. I can't...
But when you get into it in elementary school, you do have to ride a short bus. So, but it was Gifted, which was like just study hall, and then 2 hours of choir, 3 hours of theater, and then my one academic class was an English class called World Literature.
So not very academic even.
It was fun.
Yeah. English was the best in school.
Yeah, and I would like go to summer school and like compact classes at summer school so I wouldn't have to bother with them during the school year.
Yeah.
I would also go to summer school only once because I failed a class. But
just because you didn't like to pay attention?
Yeah. Homework is what it came down to. I could ace any test, but I didn't. I was resentful of homework. I was like, leave me alone.
Well, like, what's the point of it if you can pass the test?
Yeah, if you can pass the test,
that's
why
how
do
I always felt.
Yeah, exactly. So I just like defaulted to school. I went to community college because it was cheap. And
what'd you do at JUCO?
Just general education.
I mean, do you think about getting involved with the theater program?
Yeah, I took an. So what I started with like a full semester. It was like 14 credit hour semester, and then that fucking killed me. It was like one of the most miserable times of my life that I can remember. It's just that semester of school mixed with having a job for the first time. Like, and it was just.
What were you doing at the time? New theater?
No, I didn't start that until much later. I was working at a movie theater. We'll talk more about that later. I think you might be interested in it. But yeah, so I did that.
Going to school, terrible.
Yeah, just I did a full semester, and then it was just like, screw this. I'm just gonna like go super part time. Like I'll work towards the associates, but I'm gonna do it at my pace. I'm gonna do it taking classes that will at least kind of keep me interested, that kind of thing. And so I would take like at most 3 classes a semester, and it usually.
So you weren't even a full time student.
No. After that first semester, no. And I did that I did that from 2011 to 2015. And
so were you taking any theater classes at that time?
I took one theater class. I took an acting class with a guy
named Noble?
Tim Noble. Yeah, really nice guy. Liked him a lot. And my sister had a really successful go at theater in JUCO herself.
When?
A few years before me, probably like around the like 2014, 13 maybe. Because she went like a little after she graduated high school.
She do any
she was
of the
in,
shows?
Her big one was Godspell. She was in Godspell.
Oh, okay. That was right before me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But I took this acting class with Tim, and it just didn't like light me up the way it did in high school.
Yeah.
But I ended up trying out for a show. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try out for a show.
Which show?
I tried out for Anna in the Tropics.
Yeah.
Which is a show about
all
Cuban cigar making. Yeah, exactly. So I had no idea what it was about.
I sound designed that show.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, and I there was one white guy in the whole cast, and I didn't get a call back even. I was just like, "Oh, okay.
I guess I shouldn't act."
I take the point. Yeah. So I just
not knowing.
I didn't do well in that acting class either, because there were like assignments where they would like want you to go see a show, and I don't know. I was just very I'm not good at doing things that other people are asking me to do. Like I
have an authority problem, is what you're saying.
It's not even an authority problem so much as it's just like I have a really hard time remembering things, and I'm not organized. right? I don't, I'm not organized. And so if I remember something and put energy into it, it's because I want to do it. And I have to do things I don't want to do all the time, and I can get those things done, but it really takes something out of me.
It's a lot of work.
And I've developed that skill quite a bit more since college. But yeah, so I was in college super, super part-time, taking at most like 2 or 3 classes, and I would usually like drop a class by the end of the semester.
The one you weren't doing good in.
Right, exactly.
So
and
I can't pay attention enough for that one.
Yeah,
that was just...
I did that for 4 years. And then January.
Did you get the AA?
No. I got like halfway through. I had to it. Like it took me 4 years to get like 30 something credit hours. Yeah. So January I was enrolled in one class, which was my, like rap sheet. That was like my thing. It was just gonna be one class at a time. And so I was in a psychology class, and it was taught by these 2 ladies, and they were wonderful, and they were really nice and interesting, and I was bored out of my mind still, and I had just signed up for improv classes.
Where? At the Kick?
At the Kick, yeah, like a week before I enrolled in that psychology course. And
had you already been doing your like improv videos at this point?
I did improv in high school for 2 years, and then I did.
So you had improv at your high school?
Yeah,
that's incredible.
It was through the theater department.
That's great though.
Yeah, it was a really cool thing. It's half the reason I did theater was to be in the improv troupe.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I had enrolled in improv classes, kind of like I was really a productive kid creatively in high school. I did a lot of like self motivated work,
creativity.
Creative work.
You did the videos.
I was in a band with Nick. I wrote I worked on a bunch of different like screenplay stuff, like not loosely, but I wrote a lot. I wrote a lot of lyrics. I wrote a lot of like video ideas. I just like
you didn't have time for school. You were doing all this other shit.
Exactly. In class. I would just sit in class and write all the things I'd rather be doing, basically. And as soon as high school ended, and it kind of dropped off a little bit before high school ended, like once I got the girlfriend. But I was still pretty productive.
I don't have time for my art.
Yeah, or whatever.
I've got a girl that'll have sex with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I was still pretty productive, like compared to right after high school ended when I had to have the job, and when I was in school at like community college, it was just like it drained everything out of me. I just didn't know how to live that life while still pursuing the things that actually made me happy.
Yeah.
And so I worked on stuff still, but I was a lot more critical of my work, and which makes you less productive. The more critical you are of yourself, the less you're gonna get done. Like I wrote a screenplay, like the only one I ever finished. It was
feature
like
length or
70 pages.
So yes,
yeah, and there's like improv scenes that like aren't written out. It's just written out like what the scene would be.
So and that's definitely feature length.
Yeah, so I wrote it out to be, I wrote it with this thing in mind. I was like, okay, so it doesn't need to have a plot. It's just got to be something I can film by with my resources for no money. Yeah. And so I wrote a thing that would just involve all the kids that I
knew at the time
I could cast in this movie.
Yeah.
And like I was gonna make it. And then I got roped into this thing. This is the weirdest, longest story. I got roped into this, like, long story short, this kid lied about he was making his own movie. He had written his own screenplay, and he was going to make this movie, and he was casting all my friends that I was going to have in my movie. And I didn't know who this kid was, and they met him through, like, theater camp and stuff.
Yeah.
And my friend tells me, this kid, his movie, like his screenplay went through like this Sundance writing workshop, and apparently like Sundance is going to screen his movie. Yeah. And I was like, oh, can I get an audition? Like, and I did. I got an audition, and this kid, instead of casting me in the movie, made me the director of his movie. Because he had heard of my experience, like making videos and stuff.
Videos.
Yeah, exactly. Which I was like, hell yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
What ended up happening is this kid was lying the whole time. this kid was like a pathological, like a dangerous liar. He lied about having cancer. He lied about his family having cancer. And after about 4 months of working on this project, because the auditions were in March, and we were like doing rehearsals and gonna start filming in summer. So it was like August when we like a bunch of us started piecing together these different stories and going like, oh, he told you lung cancer. He told me breast cancer.
Yeah,
you know. And then
I think I knew that kid. I think he was in the JUCO theater department.
Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have cancer.
No, he didn't.
No.
No, he did not. And so, but in his screenplay, like it was really, really like touching. It was bad, but it was really touching when you thought he was a normal person who actually experienced these things. But once you found out the level of lies that he told, the whole thing just became like, oh, this isn't real.
Yeah.
It was really like a fool's gold kind of thing. Like I wasted the summer that I would have been able to make my movie that I had written, trying
Working
to do
on
this instead.
Josh's film.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that really, really hit me hard because I was on cloud 9 for months thinking that I was going to be directing a movie.
They're screening at Sundance.
Yeah, that they were going to screen at Sundance. Yeah, which sounded crazy, but I was like, yeah. And I did this whole thing like where he made up this lady named Charity who was from Sundance who would email all of us. And he made up this guy that he went to, like the screenplay was about this like halfway house thing that he lived at. And he made up this guy. And he had him email this guy, this friend of his from the house. And then once we found out what a liar he was, like once we started to kind of piece together these suspicions, I figured out how to like check IP addresses on emails, and they all came from the same IP address.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. So it was like undeniable, unrefutable proof. It was all him. Yeah. The whole time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I knew him because he was in the JUCO theater department.
Right.
He was a scholarship student actually.
Yeah.
And I was in charge of.
He is talented.
Yeah. Yeah. He is a talented kid.
Yeah.
But he's a sociopath.
He's a sociopath. Yeah.
Like 100%.
Undeniably.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he's a sociopath.
Oh God. We had this whole intervention because like I decided like I was going to ambush him.
Yeah.
Because I had grown fond of everyone in the cast. Like there were plenty of people in the cast that I didn't know.
And you were like, this is your family at this point.
Yeah,
you were
exactly.
creating a film.
And he was really taking advantage of their hopes, just like he did in mine. But I was like a little older than a lot of the people that were involved.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt this like responsibility to these people. I was like, they got to know that this is not real. That I'm walking away from this, and that I think they should too. Like, because I considered maybe I should just like not do it. Maybe I should just say, "Hey, thought about it."
If you just left, but then all of them would still be fucked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
how'd that go?
It was like watching. It was honestly the creepiest thing I've ever seen in person. Just his reactions, like the way he would like try to turn things back onto me. Like, I don't remember the context of what I was saying exactly, but I said something along the lines of like, because of you, and because of what you've done. And he goes, "What about what you've done, Christian?" I was like,
what have I done?
What the fuck have I done? That's not a real argument at all. Like, I've done nothing.
Yeah.
Except figure out that you're lying.
Yeah.
Like, the way we found out is a friend of mine that was working on the production, she was a makeup artist, and he had gotten beat up at school. Or so he said.
I remember.
He had this like whole patch on his side from like a stab wound, apparently, in a black eye. And my friend, the makeup artist, she was like, that black guy is makeup. It's not a real black guy.
Yeah.
Like, and she kind of like stepped away quietly, like after
and so then you started
happened.
Figuring out more.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh.
So that was the summer of 2012. So it was like, I was like depressed.
Yeah.
The fall of 2011. The spring of 2012, I started getting back on my feet and started getting creative again.
Yeah, but in this built on this lie.
Well, no, previous to the lie. Like that's when I started writing the screenplay, my screenplay. That's when I was like working on videos again with my friends. None of those ever got finished, but like I was working on videos, and then like my summer of 2012 just got hijacked by that lie.
Yeah,
and then like. Once it all came crashing down, it was just like a really defeating blow to my like creativity and to my like drive.
Yeah.
And so I I didn't make anything. I didn't work on anything like legitimately or seriously for like almost a year.
You kind of just
after
like
that.
had a job.
Yeah, I just kind of had a job and went to school and for about a year.
Man.
And then summer of 2013, like March to summer of 2013, I got super productive again. I was making videos and had this whole plan. I made this like series with a bunch of friends. It was an improvised comedy like
So this is you getting
sketch.
back to filmmaking from when you had already done it in high school,
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of getting back into the groove of what I used to do in high school, but taking it to a more personal place because the things I was making were more based on my real life and that kind of thing.
What kind of equipment did you have, just out of curiosity?
Just a camera.
Yeah, just like a...
Just in high school, I had like this shitty Canon, like non-HD, like very low quality.
Was it DSLR or was
no,
it like
no, it was not DSLR.
just like a...
only just it was just like a
yeah, just one of those
like a $200 camcorder that your dad would film your sock. Older than that, the first one. The second one is that the HD like 1000 or something like that.
This is Lolo's old camera.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, that might be the exact same thing that I had in like 2013.
The Vixa HG20. It's
Yeah, I think that might be what I had, or I had the HD like 100 or something like that.
Yeah. We just found this the other day. And we're
Nice.
like, what's on this thing? I don't
Right.
know.
But yeah, so I made this whole thing. I made this whole series in 2013 over the whole summer, and it was like I was finally like getting back into my groove as like a filmmaker, and it was like the most proud I had ever been of something. And then like a week after I filmed the last sketch,
Yeah.
my dad passed away.
Oh, wow.
So like I couldn't. That was in August, like so, and I didn't end up editing anything until November, like, because I mean,
a death in most people's lives takes up a lot of time and energy, and like a father has got to be.
Yeah, I quit my job and I dropped out of. Well, I didn't drop out of school, but I dropped out of like 2 classes. I was only
You'd already
taking one
kind of dropped
class.
out of school.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, I was never committed to school.
There wasn't
and
much to drop out of.
I knew that the whole time. Yeah, exactly. So like, but I just just spent a couple months just not doing anything. And then I edited it all together in November and I released it all in November, the series. And it got like mixed reviews. Like a lot of people, I remember one comment was like, okay, I don't understand what this is. And it was just like, I was like, what do you mean you don't understand what it is? It is what it is. And I explained like my thought process on it, which was all nice sounding. But
in
like,
your head.
Exactly. But upon like rewatching it a few years later, I look at it and I'm like, okay, I can absolutely understand why people don't know what I was doing here. Like,
Yeah.
But
what were you doing?
It was like, it's like a sketch show. It's like, there's no plot, but there were 9 episodes. Each one of them was about 10 to 15 minutes. And there would be usually about 3 pieces in those episodes.
3 different sketches.
Yeah, sketches. But they were all
unrelated to each other.
Yes, but they were all based on like real life for the most part. Some of them were like loose ideas, but the setting was Overland Park.
Okay.
And the cast was me and my friends.
Got it.
Like there was no but
so like to have you in it, would you just like put it on a tripod and just like walk into like the frame and be like, that's probably a good shot? Like,
yeah, exactly, that kind
Cool.
of thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a filmmaker. Like that was my first goal. When I was 10, I decided I wanted to make movies.
What made you want like what was
John Hughes. My friend Brett had this home theater that was like projector, like big, like a screen as big as this wall. And like no sunlight can get into that room. Awesome sound system.
That's the dream.
Yeah, it was an incredible.
Yeah,
and we would just go down there and watch movies together. And one day he was like, "Do you like 80s movies?" We were like 10 years old, and I was like, "I don't know."
I
Like,
don't even know what that means.
My parents were super like my parents were really old. For my age, so like they kind of like missed the 80s culture. They were already like too old for it. That kind of thing. So like he introduced me to. We watched 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off all in one go.
Those are like the best ones.
Yeah, exactly. When Ferris Bueller came on, which was the last one we watched, I noticed written and directed by John Hughes. I was like, that was the same guy on the last one. And then I looked
Yeah.
at 16 Candles and I was like, it was the same guy on this one
No,
too.
you did it
And I
too.
was like, I want to do that. That sounds awesome.
I want to be John Hughes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then like Kevin Smith was my next big influence. Like at 12,
Yeah.
my mom sat me down and we watched Dogma because she was like a minister and she had seen the movie and she was like, it came on Comedy Central one day. She was like, Evan, watch this with me. This is a good movie. And I loved it. Like, I thought it was
You'd
hilarious.
like never seen comedy like that before.
Yeah, well, yeah. Because I was pretty young and my mom actually kind of like was careful about like the R-rated PG-13 kind of thing. And so, but we watched that and I got really into Kevin Smith and I learned, I would just go to Blockbuster like with my dad's money and just rent Kevin Smith movies, and they never checked my ID. They only once ever were like, "You're too young for this," and I was like, "I've already rented it 5 times." It would have just been Clerks. Probably.
Oh wow,
renting Clerks for the 5th time.
That's so weird because like I know, like my parents have Blockbuster too, and yeah, they have like in the system at least for like me as a kid,
right?
They used to have like, can your kid rent these kind of movies?
Oh yeah.
And like my parents had restrictions, like I couldn't rent anything that was PG-13 or above.
My dad just was like, yeah, I'm like if
he's gonna see it.
If he looked at it and he was like, I don't know, I just didn't have shitty taste. Like I didn't want to watch I didn't want to watch the bloody, gory, like or overly sexual things that a kid shouldn't see. I just wanted to watch comedy.
Yeah.
And comedy was only R-rated for the most part because of the language in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I got Clerks, and there was a special feature. Yeah, it's an incredible movie. There's a special feature on there that's basically a documentary about Clerks.
Yeah.
It's like feature-length documentary, and it talks about the risk of making the movie. It talks about how he went into this huge credit card debt, and he was taking loans from his parents, and it all just on the strength of the fact that he just wanted to make a movie. It was a stupid thing to do, honestly. It was
definitely
dumb fucking thing to do, and it gave him a whole
paid
career.
Off, though.
Exactly.
It fucking worked.
And so in my delusional head, I always just had this idea that if you just keep making stuff, like eventually somebody's going to see it and it'll become something. And that is how it works.
I still have that delusional thought.
Because that is how it works, for sure. But I wasn't, like, at least Kevin Smith dropped out of film school.
Yeah.
Like I didn't pick up, like I would buy a book about screenwriting and never look at it. Or I would, I would watch documentaries and think like, that's kind of the same thing as going to film school. Like I just, so all the technical stuff, like actually setting up a decent shot and recording quality sound and all that kind of stuff, I just completely.
You should learn it.
I just didn't spend any time thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I would make these videos and people would be like, I can't see what's happening in this scene at all. Or like, I can hardly hear what you're saying or whatever it was. And I'm like, okay, but yeah, like get past that. It's funny stuff here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, other people can't get past it as easily as I can. So
on your own videos.
Right. So
do you think you have that same kind of like give for like other videos you see online though? I'm just out of curiosity.
Absolutely not. Yeah, no. But I've never seen anything like, I've seen stuff that I'll forgive like little things because I think the voice underneath it is good.
Yeah.
But like for the most part, I don't have the patience to watch something that isn't like good looking.
Well.
That doesn't look
sound good.
or
If I can't
sound
hear
good.
it.
If it's audio mumbo jumbo, wind noise, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just the kind of thing where like it was already getting the camera was already the hard part because it was so expensive and I didn't have any income. So I was just like making deal. Like I got my first camera. I got strep throat when I was 12. So it was 2 years after I made the filmmaking decision. I got strep throat when I was 12 and I went to the doctor and they were like, we're actually doing these like trials on this experimental strep drug for kids 12 and under. And if you do it, you'll have to come in 4 times. You'll have to give blood twice, and we'll give you $50 for each visit. And I was like, so $200? Yeah. I was like, so I could buy a camera. So I decided to sign up for this trial so I could buy a camera. And my dad was like, yeah, I'll match you. Like I'll pitch in however much money.
If you can raise $200,
And I ended up getting the $250. And this would have been like 2005.
Yeah.
So I got just like a $400 camera. And I just started filming on that. And that's what I used until it would have been like junior year of high school. Yeah, sophomore, probably junior year of high school. And so like most of the videos that I actually put out and that people actually watched at all were just dog shit quality, like as far as like just how they looked and sounded.
Yeah, but you were creating something.
Yeah, I was creating anything at all, right?
Yeah.
And so 2013, when I made that series, I had like a slightly nicer camera, had like a better sense of like film during the day or whatever it was, and it was one of the better looking, better sounding things I had ever put out. And I just felt really good about it. But I just didn't, I was planning on making a second season, but it was already like just pulling teeth to get everyone on board. And I know you know that struggle. Just like when you have to deal with actors that you can't pay.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, they have ambition, like, they want to act, they want to do it, but at the same time, it's just like...
You have to work around everything else in their lives.
You have to work around everything else in their lives, and you have to work around their egos. Like, you have to work... And I have an ego.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little more under control.
I think everyone has an ego, which is how much you can check your own ego.
Exactly. And at the time, it was less. Before I started doing stand-up, I definitely, when it came to creative endeavors, had more tunnel vision. Yeah. I was less receptive. Like, my mantra for the longest time was like, I'm just going to make stuff for me. I'm going to make stuff that I'm going to like. And if other people like it, that's great. That's what I want. But I don't want to make something because other people are going to like it. I want to make something because I'm going to like it. And I still think that's noble.
That's important. Yeah. No, that's great.
That's a good way to approach things. But it's not... When I was thinking of it, I think there was a level of delusion to it that was unhealthy, which was that if I actually legitimately want to make like a living or a career or sustain myself doing those kinds of things, I still have to know how to make it translate to people. And if that means I edit out the line that, was an inside joke that, or if that means that like I have to kind of like truncate the truth or kind of like add something to make it more palatable, whatever it is, like
adjust it for an audience.
Exactly. I resented that idea when I was younger, to the extent that it damaged my ability to get through
to communicate ideas.
My idea. Exactly. Yeah. So the videos, they came out and it's still very like personal work to me, and I like it a lot. Yeah. But I just but
they weren't doing it for you.
So 2014, like I just shirked on doing the work, and I just didn't have it in me, and I was still really kind of like living through
your dad
grief.
Passing away.
Yeah, exactly. And so by the end of the year, I kind of got back into the spirit of like, okay, I really need to start working again. Like I need to start.
You need to create.
I don't feel content when I'm not producing something.
That's great.
And so I signed up for improv classes just as like I was like, I liked improv in high school. Let's see what this is like.
Yeah.
I'm not paying rent. I can pay for improv classes. And I did that. And then after the first week of improv, I went to...
Did you drop out of that too?
No.
Okay.
I actually, so I was signed in, I was in one class at JUCO, psychology, which started like the week before improv classes. And so I was doing that two times a week. Then I started doing improv classes. And then the week after I started improv classes, so the second week of improv class, right after the class, I went to Arts Bar to do my first open mic.
Oh, wow.
And I had never seen live comedy. I had never like been to an open mic, but I was like, I got to get on stage. Like I had like a note of like stand-up ideas that I've been working on for maybe a year.
Did you watch stand-up a lot or?
A lot.
Okay.
Talking about ego earlier, like I had like a really healthy ego, for like, basically like I had a really, really low self-esteem until I started like acting and singing and stuff. And like in middle school, I got slapped into choir just because all the other classes were full. I go to choir And it turns out I was the best guy
But you're
in
good.
the choir.
Yeah.
I was the best guy in the choir. Like, and they were like, it was a bunch of guys who had done it the year before. It was 8th grade, and they were just like, well, okay, cool. I got a haircut. My hair was, and I became like a little less androgynous, like, like, and there was auditions for a musical, and I had planned on auditioning for the musical the year before. There's one musical a year at my middle school.
Yeah.
And in 7th grade, I had planned on auditioning for the musical.
What was the musical?
Fiddler on the Roof, 7th grade.
Yeah.
And I stayed after school, and then I like went to the auditorium, and I left and called my mom. I was like, "Come pick me up, please. I'm not doing this." But then like getting into choir and finding out that I had some talent, I was like, okay. I started getting a little more self-esteem. Started making like nicer friends, and that's when I became friends with Nick. Actually, it was in 8th grade.
Oh wow! Did you meet him in choir? Or?
Oh no, we met in band actually.
Oh okay.
And gym. But I tried out for the musical Guys and Dolls, and I got the lead role.
Oh
I
wow!
was Sky
You're
Masterson, yeah. Which was
see it
like
was
the
Sky
romantic lead of all things. And people were like, "You got the lead," before I even saw the sheet. And I was like, what? And they were like, "Yeah, you gotta kiss Sarah, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, who? And she's like, she's the most popular girl in the school.
In the theater world?
In the school.
Wow.
Like the most popular girl in the school. And then I didn't know who she was.
You were just
because
like an oblivious little dude.
I was so low on any social spectrum in middle school. Like that's the most inconsequential I ever was. And so it like, when you're 14 and people start to tell you that you're talented at all, I started getting like this really conflated ego. As kind of a response to
the cat's coming down.
Oh,
man.
she is
no,
cute.
it's not.
Oh, it's
Okay.
a cute cat. But I got this like really conflated ego kind of as like a response to how low my self-esteem was. And so when it came, that's one of the reasons I was so productive.
Yeah.
It's like,
you're like, I am great. I know I'm great.
Nick like had just started this band. They didn't have a singer really. And I piped up. Was becoming friends
I'm the
with
best
him.
guy
And I was
in
like,
choir.
hey man, like I'd love to be the singer in your band. And they were like, okay, we'll talk about it. And they let me on, and we did great work, I think. And then I, made these videos, and I released them like without thought, and I, did a bunch of theater and all this stuff, and I had a few ego checks here and there, obviously.
Yeah, but creatively, you were always ready to throw yourself into
exactly.
it.
But the one thing that I never had confidence in was stand-up.
Why?
I don't know.
Because it's so personal, you think?
I don't know. I loved stand-up growing up. Really, like, it was like my sister and I would watch it more than anything else. Like, we loved all sorts of comics, Mike Birbiglia, and like Comedy Central Presents, like that whole show. We would record episodes on our DVR, and then we would just have them recorded for years.
Wow.
We just watched them like DVDs, and I just loved stand-up, and I saw so many different kinds of stand-up, and I think I was just intimidated. I think I respected it more than I respected most other art forms, and I think I knew more about it than I knew about a lot of other art forms in a strange way, and I think that I saw that as like intimidating, and
what made you go to Arts Bar?
I just had the material, because like when you sit around thinking of sketch ideas and movie ideas for, however, 8 years.
Yeah.
Every once in a while you come up with something, you have a funny thought, and you go, oh, well, I don't know how to visualize that, and I don't know where it belongs. So I guess if that was going to be anything, it would be a stand-up idea. So I would just have like notes, and I would be like, stand up. It was just like a thing. I would put thoughts that I didn't want to forget.
That you had no other place for, but you didn't want to forget.
And eventually, like, I compiled like a pretty long list of ideas. Yeah. And I was just like, I gotta try it. I gotta like at least get on stage and try it. Yeah. And it was kind of in the spirit of just like, I need to start doing something.
Yeah.
And when
I'm just doing the improv class. I need to do more than that.
Well, I was doing the improv class. That was like a really good move. And I was just like, might as well try the open mic. And I went.
Did you just like Google open mics KC?
Yeah. And at the time, Merritt Lemons, I think, had like a KC stand-up website that had the open mics listed on it. So I saw Arts Bar Monday, and I was just like, all right, well, that's tomorrow, so I'll go. Yeah. And I went up in front of...
How'd it go?
It was like 28th on the list of like
Jesus.
32.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know how that goes. Stayed in the room the whole time, watched every single person go up. I went, oh, that's not very funny. That guy's pretty funny. People are laughing, but I don't like it. You know, like just judging really harshly and thinking like, oh, okay, I think I'm probably funnier than that guy.
Yeah.
And then I got on stage, 28th. There was 3 people in the audience. One of them was my now ex-girlfriend, who I had tried all the jokes on the way to the mic.
So she'd heard them all.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then the other 2 were just these 2 random guys sitting in the front row at Arts Bar at 12:30 on a Monday. You know how it goes sometimes. And that's back when the show used to go really long because like Norm
Dexter used to run it.
Yeah. And he was just not as I don't know. He was just more lenient and kind of disorganized. But I did my jokes and I got a few laughs out of the guys on the front stage, and things that I thought were really funny didn't work at all. And I just got off, and more than like any other moment in my artistic like pursuits, I was like just floored by how difficult it was.
Yeah.
To even be that bad. You know what I like? Yeah. Let alone like how difficult.
I put so much work into it and I got 3 laughs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and to think about how difficult it would have to be like a master of it. And I was just like, my first thought was I have to get better at this.
Yeah.
And a lot of things came kind of easily to me.
Yeah.
For a long time. The only people watching my videos were my friends. So most of the comments were really positive. The only people saw me acting were friends and family of family friends and friends of family and, you know,
school people.
Exactly, school people. And so they're going to be really supportive of you. The only people that ever heard or saw my band were, for the most part, like we performed at one Battle of the Bands that went okay. But for the most part, like just friends and family who liked us and liked our music. And so everything I did was received really positively up until...
It's very self-contained.
Exactly, up until I did stand-up. And it was kind of this epiphany. Like all at once I was like, oh shit. Okay, you have to know how to make strangers laugh. You have to know how to translate yourself to people. You have to know all and it was just kind of this like revelation. And I haven't been off stage for more than a week since then.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's what?
That would have been
3 years?
It'll be 3 years this January.
Dope.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and I feel like I've already had like ups and downs.
Yeah.
But all the people I meet, all the stand-ups I've met that have been doing it a long time, make a living doing stand-up and you don't know their name, those kinds of guys.
Yeah.
I tell them how long I've been doing it and they're like, oh, this guy Sam Talent, he's a touring headliner, really, really funny guy. Like he was on Comedy Central's Roast Battle, and he's open for legends. Like he's open for Louis and Dave Chappelle in Denver, where he was based for a long time. And very, very funny guy. And I got the opportunity to open for him out in this club in Arkansas with Aaron Naylor, who was the feature. Yeah, and he was really nice. And I had like hosted a show. Aaron had put him on like a year before, and I don't know if you remembered that, but like we got to spend the weekend together, the 3 of us, and it was a blast. And I remember on the way there, we were talking about comedy, and I just brought up like, yeah, I just don't feel like I've been doing it long enough to really have too many opinions, especially on the kinds of things that I hear you guys talking about right now. And he was just like, so how long have you been doing it? And I was like, about 2.5 years. And he was like, oh, so you're not even a thing yet. And I was like, yeah,
I guess you're right.
That's the right way to put it, because
I'm not a thing.
He was like, you're not really going to even start to be like reliably funny until you've been doing it for at least like 3 years.
Yeah.
And I
look at you, you're almost reliably funny.
I'm almost a thing. Maybe. But I think 3 years in Kansas City is not the same as 3 years in Denver.
It's not.
I'll tell you. But I think like stand up is the first creative pursuit that I ever really respected the effort that it requires and the work that goes into it. And
so is filmmaking still in the back of your head? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, like and sometimes it's like I don't know, like I'll just be sitting around and every once in a while I'll be like, I miss making videos.
Yeah.
And then I just think about all the headaches of like trying to have the idea that's worth working on and then trying to get everyone else on board and then trying to stay true to your vision while not stepping on the people's toes who just, who are in the video with you.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I just don't have it in me right now. Like, I just don't.
Yeah.
And I love doing it. And I like the writing workshop that IX does, that you guys do, but it seems like that's really been on the back burner with your feature length. And
a little bit.
Yeah,
We're trying to get it back together.
Yeah. And I have some ideas that I think are really funny and that I'd like to like get on film.
We're hoping to meet soon.
I have like 2 ideas in particular that I think would make really good videos.
Nice.
And they're a little more succinct and palatable than the stuff I used to make.
Right now we're really working on trying to edit and get out a couple videos we've shot because we've now shot 3 or 4. I don't know. Writer's room things that just like we haven't released yet. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we've got to get those out before we meet with more people.
Right.
But yeah, no, I really want to get working back into it. We're about to expand a bit, actually.
Cool.
In just getting another computer so we can have 2 editing bays.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So me and my wife can both work.
I loved editing.
Constantly.
I did like everything on the videos myself, all the like external stuff. That's one of the reasons I didn't really focus on it too much is because I was like, I'm not going to worry about the sound because that would be a whole nother thing. And I'm not going to worry about the lighting because that would be a whole nother thing. Like I already have to concept and direct and quote unquote and act and edit. And so
it is so hard worrying about all the things.
But editing, I loved editing and I loved like the act of like turning nothing into something and like really like piecing together a puzzle without lines, you know?
That is one of the best.
It's an amazing feeling when you like when you get a scene made. When you make the one scene work and like, but I never had the setup for it. Like my computer, my laptop is still hardly usable because it's just full of files from that series I made in 2013 that are just backed up and the whole hard drive is just full of shit. So it runs so slowly that the fucking editing software crashes. Like you edit one thing and. Yeah, so
that's what Lolo's computer had become because like she started shooting on this little Canon over here and editing it all on her MacBook, and it just became it's a fucking brick at this point.
It's just like, a million headaches, and if I didn't have comedy, if I wasn't doing stand up, I would absolutely still be making videos somehow. Yeah. I know that's true. Because I was making videos the whole time that I was like being unproductive. I just wasn't getting them done.
Yeah.
We would film like everything in one night, and then we would realize that a scene needed to be refilmed or something.
And you just never do that.
And we would just never have the time to do it. Yeah, that kind of thing.
I just watched you get the shit beat out of you by 2 men in giant bear costumes. I found you on YouTube, man.
In bear costumes? Was it
Selling Santa?
Selling Santa,
Fuck yeah, man.
Yes. That was one of the only ones I ever made that wasn't my... Like, I wasn't involved on the creative process. I just filmed it for a friend. The star of the video, I filmed it for him.
He wanted to sell a Santa Claus.
Yeah, he wanted to make that video. I think it was like for his youth group or something. He wanted to make a video, and like that was his idea. It was like the day after my birthday. I remember, so I was like really groggy because I had been out really late the night before having fun, and that's a funny video actually because that guy's hilarious. My friend Jared. He did improv in high school. He was my sister's age, and I became friends with him through my sister. Like my sister graduated the year.
How much older than you is your sister?
4 years. So she graduated 2007, and then I started school the next semester, 2007.
Okay.
So we never went to high school together, but she did theater.
Yeah.
And that's how she knew him, and he was on the improv team, and I used to go see improv shows with her all the time, and he was fucking funny. Like. We became friends, and yeah, we made that video together. I don't see him a lot anymore. He's like married. He's about to have a kid.
He's got like a life now.
Yeah.
And you're just still doing comedy.
Yeah. Trying.
No, so you're saying you really enjoy the editing process though?
I really liked editing a lot. And it just, it used to really eat me up. Like, that's one of the reasons I didn't make a second season to that show that I did was like my computer was just jacked up from the first season.
Yeah.
And I have so much footage, not just of the videos that I've made, but just of like life, just recording for no reason.
Yeah, because Nick was saying you used to like just kind of like walk around filming.
You would just carry my
everything.
camera like everywhere for years. And I just have...
You sound, so like all of your stories just sound sort of like a filmmaker to me. Is that a weird thing to say?
No.
But like me and all my filmmaker friends did the same things.
Yeah.
And like...
Exactly. I mean, like, I think...
And the drive is still there. It's just currently taking a back burner to comedy.
Exactly. And the thing about like filmmaking is I think it's the kind of thing where like legitimately if I have an idea that I'm really passionate about, I almost, when it came to film, when it came to like the videos, when I had an idea that I felt really strongly about, it always would get done.
Yeah. So for you, you just need something that you really need to make.
Exactly. But those ideas only come to me when I'm sitting around trying to come up with ideas. Very, 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 very rarely will an idea just kind of pop into my head. I usually have to spend like pretty intense time thinking like, what about a video like this? You know? And in high school, I had hours upon hours upon hours to just sit down and like, because I didn't need to pay attention in class half the time. Yeah. And so any class that I was sitting at a desk, I would just sit there and work on those kinds of ideas. And so I would come up with 20 and one of them would be usable, you know? So
is the comedy like right now in your head, the comedy career is part of a journey to a comedy and filmmaking end?
No. Like oddly enough, because like, obviously I look at stand-up and I look at successful comics and I look at like the most successful comics get to parlay their comedy inevitably into something else, into acting or filmmaking or sketch writing or having their own TV show, whatever it is. And that's all well and good. That's great. I don't think it's at all practical for me to look at stand-up as a means to an end, because those guys are guys that had to become the best stand-up before anyone offered them any opportunity to do anything else. Like Louis had to do stand-up for 20 years. He had to do stand-up for 20 years and like write in different people's writer's room and write other people jokes for decades before he was offered to actually make his own thing and have control over it, you know?
And he still didn't have as much control as he wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where Horace and Pete came from, was his desire for control.
Right. And like that to me, like it goes back to like that epiphany of doing the first open mic, which was really just like, this is special. Yeah. There's something about stand-up that's just so legitimately challenging. And I think part of it might be where we're doing it. Like, I went to this open mic in Chicago. I took like a trip to Chicago 4th of July of 2015. So I had been doing comedy for like 6 months.
You just started.
Yeah. But I went to this Sunday morning open mic because we were only there the weekend and I wanted to get on stage at least once. We went to this Sunday morning open mic at the Second City Training Center. Yeah. So it was at Second City, but it was like upstairs, like in this small theater. But I went there and I showed up a little late and there were like 10 people on the list. And I like wrote out this note for the host that was like, hey, I'm in from out of town. I'd really like to get some stage time. My name. Yeah. I handed it to him and he read it and he just goes. And then so I sat down and I was like, okay, so I'll go up eventually. Yeah. Because it was just the way it was. I couldn't actually talk to the host without interrupting the show. They were sitting too close to the stage, that kind of thing. So I watched these open micers. There's about 10 of them. And they're all my age or younger. They're like late teens, early 20s. Is there an audience? For the most part. Yeah. There's an audience of about 30 people there. Yeah. On a Sunday morning. It's like, the mic started at noon. Wow. So like
Like this is their church.
Yeah. Yeah. And I watched one after the other, and they were all horrible.
Oh, wow.
Just horrible.
Yeah.
And the crowd was eating the shit up. They were laughing so generously.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting in my seat going like each name they would call, and we're like, all right, so I'm not up. So I'm going to go and when I was like, when I get on there, like I just like, I had only been doing comedy 6 months, but I knew I had 5 minutes of material that would bury everyone else on this mic.
Yeah.
That's just how bad they were. And with the crowd being as supportive as it was and as like
You're
generous,
like, I'm gonna fucking
I was
kill.
like, I'm gonna destroy. This is gonna be one of the best sets I'll have ever had.
Yeah.
And then they were like, all right, so this last guy we're bringing up, he opened for Robin Williams and he tours all over the country, and they just announced their like headliner, and they just didn't put me up at all.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah, but that experience of just watching all these other comics who were
Do you know why they didn't put you up?
No, I didn't have time to stick around and ask, because we were kind of in a hurry, like we were leaving that day, but I just remember feeling like it was so strange to me that these people who were not doing good work at all, it was like they were all trying to write Weekend Update jokes, is what it felt like, just like very like. All of them, it's like they all took the same class. You know what I mean? Which probably was the case.
Is true.
Like until they had this like headliner guy that was like pretty good, like clearly like a good stand-up. Like, but it was just like this really validating experience to think like I think crowds in Kansas City are legitimately not good crowds, and you hear loose talk about that. Like, you'll hear, like, Louis has a whole bit about how much he hated Kansas City, and Marin has a bit about how he doesn't really like Kansas City, and then I think Nick brought this up on the podcast. There's TJ Miller said
Don't go to Kansas City.
On the Making It with Ricky Lindholm, he goes, like, stay away from Kansas City. Like, and I think we have notoriously bad crowds. And I've seen stand-up. I saw David Cross at the Midland last year, and he was bad. But the audience was worse.
Wow.
The audience was horrible. They were like talking and drunk and disorderly, and I think we just have shitty crowds. And I'm not saying every show we've ever put on in the city has had a shitty crowd. I think they're a good crowd.
Do you think that's a difficulty that we have to overcome?
But I think it's like a unique. I don't think it's too unique. I'm sure that there are shitty crowds all over the country, but I'm saying even our good crowds are hard to laugh. Like I don't know. And obviously if we were better, it would probably go even better. Like I said, I'm saying everything I say has the underlying tone of like, I am not good. I don't. You
don't want anyone to get confused and think you are.
Yeah. No, I'm not good at this.
You're not good at this.
No. And I know that. I'm aware. But I do think that like, there's this like hope. There's this small underlying like subconscious hope that like I'll go to a different city where stand-up is a little more common. Yeah. And the crowds are a little more trained.
Well, I think that's the problem with crowds in Kansas City. Yeah. Is I think there's no... stand-up isn't common.
No.
It's a weird thing that you happen.
I mean, I love stand-up, and I never saw live stand-up. Even when, like, acts I loved would tour here, I had no idea they were here. Yep. That kind of thing.
And, like, beyond that, like, the only stand-up people can easily see in the city
is Stanford's.
Stanford's and open mics.
Yeah.
And most of those are shows where they just, like, happen upon a stand-up show. Right. And they're like, what the stand-up's happening? And they don't know how to act as an audience because you're not telling jokes to an audience. You're telling jokes to people who went to a bar and are now a part of a stand-up show.
Yeah, and there's this whole psychological factor that comes into play, too, where you're not as likely to laugh at a show you didn't pay to get into. Yeah. Because once you put money down on something... your subconscious is like, this better be worth it. And so you're more likely to do your part to make it worth it, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's kind of this, like, I think there's kind of this tipping point that you can get to where it's like eventually the audiences start being more reliable. Once you've gotten to a point where you're performing more often in front of people who have paid than people who haven't paid, and more often in front of crowds that are there on purpose as opposed to just crowds that wandered in, then the work, it doesn't become easier, I'm sure. I'm not speaking from experience, but it becomes probably more rewarding.
Yes.
Like, at least short term. But I think like there's just not even one consistent showcase in this city that really gives stand-ups an opportunity to get up in front of like a great crowd in a great room.
Yeah.
Like we do our show ListOff. The reason I'm here, I love ListOff.
Yeah.
But having performed on it myself just a few weeks ago, stand up.
Yeah.
We did this like episode where Nick and I, who are usually the hosts, and kind of just like MC the show, we got our girlfriends who are also both stand-ups to host it, and we participated in the game show and did the stand-up.
There's a beautiful way to explain it to the audience because I was there, so I know.
Yeah,
but
I know.
I love it. I love what you're doing. That's nice.
Yeah,
Good job.
like the listener doesn't.
Good job. Yeah.
If there's anyone listening. Just gonna shit on your podcast real quick.
That's cool. That's fine.
But
no, performing on it.
But
yourself.
I performed on it myself, and Tapcade, where we put it on, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a great place to put on a show because there's nothing that's really gonna distract you. You got a theater all to yourself, and you can have a lot of fun there. But you're not going to get a rolling like that laugh.
The way it's seated is not seated for a comedy show.
No. And professionals talk about this all the time. Once you start watching the comedy documentaries and all the podcasts and stuff, like you start to hear like, okay, there's a room that's ideal for comedy.
Yep.
It's low ceilings. It's dark. There's no excess light.
Yeah, and the audience is close together.
Yes.
They're packed right next to each other.
And we have maybe 2 rooms in the city that we do open mics at that are like that. Arts Bar and Westport.
Yeah.
And Westport, we don't get a big enough crowd. We just don't. And then Arts Bar has a lot of noise pollution.
Yes. Because it's a back room-esque.
Yeah. It's like
it's only curtained off.
It's a black box theater, yes, but exactly. There's just curtains separating it from the bar,
and then an upstairs bar.
Yeah, exactly. And there are nights like even when we don't do the open, like when we put on like real shows there, and like the little bar on top of it will be blasting EDM music, and it'll just be reverberating through the whole theater. So like, there's not really even one pure comedy space in this city.
For an open mic.
For
especially.
Stand-up, especially. Yeah.
No, I totally agree.
And I think that's one of the things that makes Kansas City kind of like oddly harsh in a weird way. Because like that open mic at Chicago, it all comes back to that. Like, I know there are people out there, and that was a room that was perfectly set up for stand-up. Yep. It was low ceilings, very, very tight. Like, it was like longer than it was. It was, it was perfect. And I think like, so I have this subconscious hope that if I go somewhere where the audiences are a little better trained and the rooms are a little better laid out, that the comedy that I've been working on for years will be received a little better. Because I've had experiences where
it's received great.
Where it's received better.
Yeah.
Like in rooms.
At shows.
Yeah, at shows. Exactly. Where I have some time to stretch and the audience is there on purpose and the room is set up well and everyone that's there is there for the show. Yeah. I've had a few experiences like that and they always go well.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
I'm not always perfect at them because I'm not good at this, like I've said, but like they always go well.
Yeah.
And then the thing about the open mic, like building an audience in this city is like impossible because the people that you get exposed to it the easiest is at the open mics.
Yep.
And there's this weird kind of thing where as a comic, when you get up 3, 4, 5 times a week at most.
Yeah.
Mostly exclusively at open mics, you know, it's like mind-numbing and really, really limiting to me, at least personally, to work on the same stuff over and over and over again.
Yes, I have the same. I'm really bad at committing myself to working the same bit.
Right, and what's even harder is there's this debate going on in my head all the time, and I've talked to friends of mine about this, where it's like open mics are the only place that anyone's seeing you at half the time. Audiences,
Yep,
and other comics.
yeah,
And so there's this weird pressure that I think we all kind of feel. It's unspoken for the most part, but there's this weird pressure to perform, to go up and get as many laughs as you can, as opposed to going up with the new thing you thought of today.
yeah,
Or going up blind and deciding to work on your crowd work, or going up blind.
which we would need a crowd to do.
Yeah, and sometimes you have it though, Patrick. Sometimes you have it. 30 people's a crowd, even if it's only there for an hour. But I just think that like I get really in my head about like worrying about the judgment of my fellow
Of the other
comedians.
Yeah,
So much so that it's like you get up, like I said, like 3 or 4 times a week at most,
and you're like,
at these open mics.
20 people in the back have already heard this joke twice this week.
Exactly. And it's like,
Yeah,
but also these 20 people in the back, like at Arts Bar on a Monday night, there's like 30 people in the room if you get a good spot, you know? It's like the best crowd you get to perform in front of for the most part, on a consistent basis. And it's like, well, if I bomb in front of this crowd, then there's maybe 2 open micers in the back of the room that are going to see that, and that's going to be their opinion of me.
yep,
They're going to think I'm the guy that bombs. They're going to think I'm the guy that didn't have a complete joke about this or whatever it was.
that didn't have the final punchline to that story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if I go up and I do my like more tried and true stuff, if I really kind of like try to swing for the fences, sometimes it's just like pulling teeth. Like sometimes I really just don't want to do those jokes.
Yeah.
And especially in the context of like 5 minutes, when I know that a lot of my more tried and true jokes work better in the context of a longer set.
Yeah, because they work together and they build off each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's this weird tug and pull of like, I think what it really comes down to is like I think I just like care too much about what other people think, and I know I'm not the only one.
No, yeah, I'm the same way.
And I think I'd be spending my time more productively on stage than I do.
That's what I fight with almost every time I get up.
Yeah.
Is just the thought of, all right, should I just keep doing jokes that I know work?
Right.
But that doesn't do anything for me as a comic.
No.
Should I practice this new bit that I want to work on?
It especially doesn't do anything for you as a comic if you're not going to do anything different with it than you have before. And that's a trap I fall into a lot, is that when I get into that, and I feel like I spent the second year, like last year, a lot of 2016, kind of falling into that trap of like, I should try to do well.
Yeah.
I should try to get the most laughs because I want to get booked on shows. I want to show these guys I
need
jokes.
These other guys that are open mics that do little showcase shows to think, that's a guy I should put on my showcase show.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I need those shows, because if I don't get on the showcase shows, I can't really see where my comedy is
going.
going.
I can't really stretch out.
Because that's the only fucking time we get a good audience.
Exactly.
Yeah, it sucks.
So I was just like, I kept like going back to the barrel, and what ended up happening is I would just tell the exact same joke the exact same way at 5 open mics in a row.
Yeah.
And then you just feel like, well, okay, it didn't really work this time. It worked these 2 times. It worked okay this time. But like, I didn't do anything differently with it ever.
Yeah.
I just did it the exact same way.
Yeah.
In different atmospheres, expecting it to, I don't know. It's like,
yeah.
And so I've been trying over this year, over 2017, to be more diligent about actually doing the work end of it, which
Yeah.
to me, I don't feel like I have done the work unless I'm like doing something new with the joke.
That
So
makes
I've spent a
sense.
lot of this year
Trying
kind of
to, if you're going to do a joke, add a thing.
yeah,
Change a
or
thing.
change the context, or exactly. Like, and I've it's actually paid off. Like
That's
I've
great.
really kind of like there's a bunch of material about my dad that I think is working better than it ever used to because I've packaged it differently.
Yeah.
And I've tied it into other things, and it still needs work, but it's at least better than it was, and I've at least done something different with it.
You're building it to a place.
Yeah, and I think the problem with doing the work is that it's way more painful to do the work than it is to just fall back on the quote
things that
unquote
work.
good stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing about the things that work is that, in my experience, whenever I fall back onto that, whenever I'm not excited to do those jokes, whenever I don't feel
They don't work.
they don't work as well.
Yeah.
And when they don't work, it's like it takes everything in me to not just say, well, that's just the audience because those jokes are good.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it wasn't the audience. It was me.
It was that you sucked.
It was
that
me.
night.
Yeah, I didn't do well that night because
Yeah.
I'm not good.
So what in this scene made you think like, hey, me and Nick should start a show?
There just weren't any shows.
Okay.
There's Lucha Raptor.
Yep.
Has been going on about, I think, less than a year more than ListOff. I think like maybe even like 6 months more than ListOff.
Yeah.
But it's not really a stand-up show. They'll put stand-ups on, and they'll have stand-up on it sometimes, but it's more
of a sketch show.
It's more of a
isn't
sketch
it?
show, yeah, in a
Yeah.
way.
I've never seen it. I
Yeah,
just know of
it's
it.
like a gaggle of guys who really don't do the open mics anymore. They started in comedy as stand-ups, but this seems to be kind of just like a thing they do with each other, like really haphazardly, and they have like their own audience that really likes the show, and it's fun. It's a fun time, but it's not really like a pure stand-up show. And the stand-up element is optional.
Yeah.
And like Jake Redpath was trying to put on shows with Tristan for a little while. They would put on like a showcase every other month. That lasted for a little while. It wasn't long, probably less than a year. And like I saw like one or two other shows start and fall, and like Spencer and Kyle were running a show together. Spencer Perkins and Kyle Hopkins were running a show together for a while at Arts Bar, and that was. There were good ones and bad ones, and it was just a stand-up showcase. And Jake and Tristan's show, when they put it on, was just a stand-up showcase, and their shows were really good. But it was like they all just kind of stopped happening after a while.
Yeah,
and they weren't really building an audience per se, as opposed to just like pulling off one good show or not pulling off a show sometimes. And I think Nick and I always loved working together.
You'd produced stuff together before.
Yeah, we had worked together. We had a lot of like a shorthand with each other already on working with each other, and I think it got to this point where we just like the scene needs more shows.
Yeah,
and if we want any hope of building a better audience for the scene, quote unquote, then we gotta put on a show.
Yeah,
and I think we did that task very well.
I agree.
I think it's a fun show.
So how did you decide you were going to make a game show?
Nick kind of mentioned this when he was on, but like we wanted to do a show. I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and I was listening to this podcast Doug Benson does called Doug Loves Movies, which is one of the most downloaded podcasts, I think, on iTunes or something like that, and it's got this big old fan base, and it's a game show. It's like he does movie trivia with just all sorts of celebrities, mostly comedians, but also like John Hamm's been on it, and sketch people have been on it. Like it's a big old show, and it's a lot of fun, and they just play trivia games with these people, and I really liked that element to it, and I was listening to this other podcast a lot called Who Charted, where they just like would have a guest on, and they would just talk about random Billboard charts, like the top 10 EDM songs or whatever, like just random stuff, like stuff that clearly had nothing to do with the guests and that no one really cared about, but it instigated conversation, and it was always funny.
Yeah.
And like the Doug Loves Movies was always funny, even if the people on it had no idea how to play the game or didn't really know anything about movies. So it was like, it made me realize, well, with a game show, you create a context.
But the audience is going to have fun kind of no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. But the stakes really don't matter at all.
Yeah.
Because like it's not about the game. It's just about giving these funny people an opportunity to be funny, kind of without the burden of
writing jokes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And the thing is, we wanted it to be a stand-up show where they get to do stand-up.
Yeah.
But it's like, none of us are all that good.
Yeah.
None of us are all that are very good at this point. Like the most experienced person that I see out on a regular basis has maybe been doing stand-up 5 years. And those guys are pretty good, you know, like, and we've had really talented stand-ups on our show, of course. But a lot of the people that we've had on our shows are people who have been doing it about as long as us, give or take a year.
Yeah.
And they're very funny. I don't think we haven't booked a single person on the show that I didn't think
that you don't find funny.
Funny, exactly. Yeah. But that doesn't mean they're the best stand-up in the world yet. So, you know, we give them the chance to do the stand-up up front to kind of give a context for why they're there, and to, you know, obviously because that's why we made the show in the first place.
And it helps inundate them to the crowd.
Exactly. But having the game show was just, in my mind, it was like, well, let's give these people an opportunity to actually kind of connect to this audience the way that we connect to these people.
Yeah. So in a world where like this, it started growing a bigger audience even, of people that weren't your family and friends. Yeah. If they saw a person that they liked, they could then be like, oh, fuck, we should go see Teague Hayes.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Or like Jim Myers, like a lot of people that like a lot of our audience really, really likes him. That's why he won the tournament last year. And like, what I love about doing the panel and having people on the panel is like a guy like Steven Taylor.
Yeah.
We put him on when he had been doing stand-up for like 7 months. And I think Steven's really naturally talented. I think he's like a really pretty natural stand-up, but he's not good at it, just like I'm not good at it, just like none of us are very good at it, you know, and he especially wasn't that good at it at 7 months, just like no one's good at it at 7 months.
Yeah.
But he was funny enough to put on the show. And he had enough jokes that I was like, these are good enough jokes that people will laugh at these jokes. He'll do well. And but like at 7 months, Steven Taylor's way funnier just talking to him in person on the patio at Arts Bar than he is really going to be most nights on a stage.
Yeah.
So when you put people on a panel, you give in front of an audience, you give that audience an opportunity to connect to that person on a more direct personal level than stand-up can kind of give you the opportunity to when we're not as good at it.
That's genius. That's really smart, honestly.
I think that's kind of the kind of show you should be putting on with less experienced, people less like reliable comedians like us, the people in our scene, is we should be putting on shows that kind of connect the audience to you on a more personal level.
That makes sense.
Because your stand-up, like our stand-up is obviously the thing that we're passionate about. And that's like why we need to work on it. And that's why we put on the show in the first place.
Yeah.
But
beyond that, we need to build an audience.
Yeah, but we need to build an audience and we need to put on good shows.
Yeah.
And I think we're funnier than we are good at stand-up, most of us.
I love that.
And so giving people an opportunity to be funny without the burden of like being so in your head. I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point, but
that's okay. That's what. That's funny though that you mentioned that, because the thing that scares me about ListOff, like I've never been on your show, but the scary thing about being on your show in my head, is the panel.
And the panel is scary. I mean, it's not. I'm not gonna like lie and say that it's an easy thing to come up with, but at the same time, there are different ways to play the game.
Yeah.
You can play the game more honestly, or you can play the game more jokingly.
Yeah.
Depending on the list. Some of the lists are bizarre, but some of the lists are just like three movies you liked as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, and you can be more personal about it.
Yeah.
And you can
say the things that you liked.
Yeah.
Or you can be like, Schindler's List.
Yeah, exactly.
MILFs do...
MILFbot 3000. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, you and both routes are legitimate things, but I think I think like that's the kind of thing like coming from kind of like an improv background.
Yeah.
You know, like all the videos I ever made were improvised. I did improv in high school. I've done 4 classes of improv.
Oh, did you do? Wow.
I did level 4. Yeah, all the way up to level 4 at the Kansas City Improv Company.
Sure, like a level 4 Grand Wizard in the Scientology.
Yes, I went clear. But it just like the game is the kind of thing where it's like you just kind of got to get out of your head.
Yeah.
And I can't think of one person that's ever been on ListOff that didn't deliver.
Yeah.
Like, and I can't think of one. Like there may have been like 1 or 2 people whose personalities didn't come out as much as I would have liked.
Yeah.
Maybe because they were a little too intimidated by it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like you'll put somebody up who, like,
give us the example. Just shit
like
on
Miguel Ruiz. Like we put Miguel Ruiz on, and whenever he's on, like, and Miguel is a funny stand-up, but I don't see him that consistent. Like I'll see him most weeks. I see him most weeks, and I like a lot of his jokes, but like, I don't see him booked on a lot of shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we'll book him, and he'll come, and he'll do his act, and it'll go well. And then when he's on the panel, he's fucking hysterical every time.
Yeah.
Just because he's funnier than he is good at stand-up. You know, like just the way a lot of us are. You know, and I think.
Well, yeah, because most of us started stand-up because, like, in conversation, we were fucking hilarious.
We're funny, exactly.
And we were like, I bet I could do that on a stage.
Yeah.
I could do the same thing on a stage.
Right, exactly. And it's not wrong. No. It's not wrong. We totally can do it. It just takes a lot of work, and and stand up more than a lot of other art forms really is a science.
Yeah.
In that, on like a literal level, you're like, your premise is your hypothesis. Your hypothesis is this joke will work, and you telling it like at its barest form, that's the control. If it works or not, good.
Yeah.
Then you change variables to alter the result.
Wow.
I mean, it really is scientific, and you're testing it out on audiences, and more than a lot of art forms. Like, stand-up is strange in that it's less subjective. Obviously, taste comes into it.
Yeah.
But only after a point. Like, for example, like a guy like Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
He started getting on TV in like the mid 60s. Like 63 or 64, I think, would have been his first like television appearance. And when he first got on TV, he was basically just doing his version of Bill Cosby. He was doing like way cleaner jokes.
Yeah.
Way more like family friendly jokes. More kind of like,
that's where you had to be to do TV at that time.
Yeah, well, but you look at that, and it was just more broad than we think of him.
Yeah.
And I think that's because like you have to get good at doing it at all before you can really do it in the like abstract way that you want to do it.
Yeah. Because before you can break the mold, you have to learn all the rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think like with stand up more than a lot of other art forms, like Clerks is a great movie made by a total novice. That guy made like a couple short films at film school, maybe. And then he made like a really good solid movie that stands the test of time for the most part. Like the only problem in it is the acting, and it can be forgiven for the budget. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of examples of musicians who put out a record when they're 16 years old, and it's, or maybe a little older than that, but still like young kids putting out music that lasts forever.
Yeah.
And like the most art forms can be perfected just kind of on the day. You know, you can make a perfect song all at once in one sitting, but I don't think you can do that with a joke.
Yeah.
Because a joke has to be tested, and then beyond the joke itself, your ability to tell it has to be tested and honed and practiced.
Yeah,
exactly. And so that's kind of the thing about stand-up that I think is so...
That's what makes you love it.
Yeah, that's what is the fact that the longer you do it and the more precise effort you put into it is the only thing that makes you more legitimate at it. No credit can make you more legitimate. Like if you got to open for somebody really big on a fluke, if that person doesn't think you're funny, then that credit doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like we had a guy in our scene, he doesn't really do comedy anymore, but he got to open for Hannibal Buress after like doing comedy for only like 6 months. And then somebody was coming to town who like needed an opener, and he tweeted about it. And this guy responded to him like, I can do it. And he was like, I opened it for Hannibal Buress or something like that. And that guy reached out to Hannibal, and Hannibal was like, don't let him do it, man.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Because he wasn't good.
Yeah.
So a credit doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It might help on a poster.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean anything.
It might help bring an audience or help on a poster, but
it doesn't mean anything for getting you work.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, such a rewarding thing to think about, is that you can't, there aren't any flukes in stand-up. Doing stand-up more than anything really made me appreciate all the comedians that I used to think poorly of. And I still have my tastes, obviously.
Yeah, there are going to be jokes that you like and you don't like.
Exactly. But like, you know, we all turned on Dane Cook, for example. You know, like he was the biggest thing in the world in 2006.
Yeah.
And then we all turned on him by 2008. You know, like, and then I revisited Vicious Circle last year. And yeah, there's like a couple jokes in there that I could seriously do without, but he's still brilliant. He's still an incredible performer.
Yeah.
And there are jokes in there that are amazing.
That's the thing about Dane Cook that like blows my mind every time I've seen Dane Cook clips since doing stand-up. It's just like his stage presence and the energy he brings to it.
It's so consuming.
And the way he moves around the stage is just fucking insane. He
brings an energy to it that's like, and a confidence to it that's just kind of like unavoidable. I can't even imagine how funny he would be in the room.
Yeah.
I bet it would fucking kill me to watch him live. Like, but like, I mean, like, and that's not the same for like a lot of other art forms.
Yeah.
Because like, who cares about Paul McCartney's newest album? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would more likely listen to anything from Meet the Beatles than I would to most of Paul McCartney's solo stuff.
Yeah, same.
And not because it's not good. I'm sure it's good, but it just doesn't do it for me the same way, because like music is just different.
Yeah.
Movies are different. Like books are different.
With that said, there are some stand-ups who, after a killer special, sometimes haven't honed those jokes enough.
For sure. I mean, what happens, usually the people that fizzle out are people that did stand-up, but they don't do stand-up. Like a guy like Donald Glover put out a special, Weirdo.
Is fucking amazing.
It's a good special. I saw him do it live at KU.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, before they released it, before they taped it. And it was much better there than it was on tape. I watched the film special, and I wasn't a fan. I didn't really like it nearly as much. And then I thought back to it, and the funniest part of the show was the encore. And the encore was thrust upon him. He wasn't supposed to do an encore. They kind of just shoved him back on stage, and he just did a Q&A because he didn't have any more jokes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was really funny. Like
yeah, he's a funny guy.
Yeah,
just naturally.
Exactly. But like another example is like David Cross. David Cross is like a guy who I think is more an actor and sketch guy in a lot of ways than he is a stand-up at this point. And like, I saw him at the Midland last year, or it might have been this year even, but I saw him and it wasn't good. There were a lot of the material didn't even have jokes in it, and a lot of it just wasn't funny. It was just him expressing opinions, and I think that's because he really doesn't do the work of a stand-up.
He's not out there every night practicing new jokes and honing those jokes.
And when you're selling tickets based on your name, I think it can be really easy to get that confirmation bias of like, well, I'm funny. I know I'm funny. And these people think I'm funny. And they laugh when I tell these stories or whatever it is. They laugh when I do it. So it must be good.
Yeah.
But then when you put it out, it's like, well, it really isn't that good.
Yeah.
And I think those are the people that really kind of fizzle out, are the people that tried it. Like, like Rob Delaney is kind of that classic example. He got really, really big on Twitter, and then he started doing stand-up, and then he did this set on, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel, where he bombed incredibly hard. It's like one of the biggest bombs I've ever seen. He just goes on this rambling streak of thoughts that, like, don't land, and it's like all the stuff that he thinks is gonna get a laugh isn't getting laughs, and like the audience is trying to laugh, but he's not good enough. He's not good at it. So he doesn't know where to stop. He doesn't know where to stop talking. He doesn't know where to leave him that thing, and he's just trying to get through everything that he wrote, and you can tell he's just not good at stand-up. And it was such a bad bomb that he has notoriously like went to great lengths to try to have it taken off the internet.
Oh wow.
It's hard to find at this point. And those, but like a guy like, if Dane Cook put out a new special next year, it would be better than David Cross's special, no matter what, I think, because Dane Cook's a stand-up.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not something I understood until I started doing stand-up.
Yeah.
Is the kind of more scientific, like, objective reality of you are or you are not a stand-up. Yeah. Yeah.
And then now you have the Monday thing, the Monday mic, which Westport. Thank you for taking that over.
Yeah. I didn't want to watch it end.
Yeah.
Especially when it was set up like pretty easily to just kind of pick up and keep going. But I'm at this point where, so like talking about kind of my creative journey, I guess.
Yeah.
Once I started doing stand-up, I really kind of just threw myself into that. And I did, for the first year, I was doing those improv classes, and I was doing stand-up. I think it was kind of just my way of, like as soon as I started stand-up, I kind of got this, like, itch in me that was like, I'm not going to stop doing this.
Yeah. This is what I have to keep doing this.
I'm going to see this to some kind of conclusion. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that just kind of became a fact of life very quickly.
Yeah.
And then with improv, by about level 3, I started to realize, like, I like doing this,
but it's not the thing.
Yeah. And I'm good at improv. Like, I do it now. I'm on the troupe at Comedy City.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I got in like July. I just auditioned kind of on a lark, and I got in. And I, have fun. And there's some really funny people working there. And I like doing it. And I can see more than I saw when I was actually taking the classes, because I'm working with some people that are a little more serious about it than a lot of the people that I had the opportunity to work with in the past. That there's more to it than I realized, of course.
Yeah.
Just like there is with every art form, I'm sure. And that, I'm not, I would have to put real concise effort into it to become better at it, just like stand up.
Yeah.
But my base level improv work
is good enough.
Is good enough to get on Comedy City.
Yeah.
And kind of like be recognized as funny by my peers. Like I don't feel like I have to work that hard in improv to get that kind of like comfort level of being seen as one of the good ones. I feel like it comes pretty easily. So there's something about that in the past, I think I would have responded to that more. Like my high school self, that would have been, well, this one's the one people like me.
This is the thing I should be doing.
But now it feels way more rewarding to focus on stand-up, and I feel like I get a lot more out of a joke about my dead dad working than about having a good improv set. You know? And so I think that I was taking the improv classes, and I kind of realized, like, this isn't going to be the thing.
Yeah.
And I'll do it again. Obviously, I picked it up with Comedy City, but it's never going to be, like, my main focus. I'll always cancel an improv show to do a stand-up show.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And creatively on top of that, around that, I've worked on a few other things, but now I'm like really kind of like trying to make myself overly busy. I like work 6 days a week.
Jesus.
2 different jobs. Then I also do improv, and then I also do stand-up.
Yeah.
And then I'm hosting a weekly open mic, and then I'm hosting the monthly show with Nick.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I'm just now starting to try to write again. I'm working on a spec script just for the exercise, just for the practice of it.
Yeah.
I'm working on planning more shows in the future, like more live shows. I'm kind of trying to come up with more like sketch ideas also. And I'm kind of just like really, really pushing myself in more areas at once than I ever have before. And I heard this thing about like this psychologist that focuses on highly creative people. They were asked like, how do I know which thing is the thing that I should be throwing all of my focus and attention into? And they were like, oh, don't do that. You should be working on as many different things at once as you can. And out of that chaos is where creative people usually thrive. And the thing that it's kind of like Darwinian almost, like you throw
the strongest will survive.
Exactly. The strongest thing will survive and thrive and grow up out of that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the theory that I've been working under right now. And I think it would be a little more rewarding and a little easier if I didn't have such a busy work schedule. Yeah. Because I work about 50 hours a week.
Wow.
Just at my jobs. Just at the things that pay my bills. And then on top of that, I'd say probably another 10 to 20 hours on depending on the week. Yeah. On comedy or art and other stuff. Yeah. So if I could like shift that ratio even a little bit, make it more like a 40 hours here, 30 hours there kind of thing, then I think it would be even better. But the thing that's suffering the most, I think, from this theory is the Westport mic show. Yeah. Yeah. Because the one thing that I'm not doing right, quote unquote, is the promotion aspect of it. Yeah. Because the show itself is good. Yeah. I think I book good features. I think I do fun games. Like, I think I've been ordering it well. I think it's going well, like as far as the actual content. But it doesn't matter when you're only doing it for 4 people. Yeah. And it especially doesn't matter when those 4 people are sitting in the back. You know, like so in theory, I should have someone seating people. And in theory, I should be out handing out flyers and paying for Facebook ads and all this kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, I myself just have spread myself very thin. Yeah. And I took over the mic thinking that I could figure it out. Yeah. And I would still love to figure it out, but I'm finding out pretty quickly
that you're not figuring it out.
That I'm not figuring it out. And it's just not as rewarding internally as I expected it to be. Yeah. And I think it could be. I think there's a lot of potential there just because it's such a great space.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And
it's one of the better spaces that has comedy in the city.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's just something off.
Yeah.
And there's just not enough hours in the day right now.
I
Is really
understand
what
that.
it comes
I
down
understand
to.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I feel a certain sense of debt to the comedy scene and to Corso to try to make the show something
Yeah.
better than what it's been able to be. But I also think that there are just some really obvious limitations that affect every show that we've ever put on in this scene.
Yeah.
I think having money on the table, the fact that we actually have to pay
You have
rent.
to pay for the venue makes it hard.
Yeah, because as soon as we have to charge for tickets, it's harder for me to get people in the door.
Yeah.
Because I have to then be more concerned with the quality of the product. And like I was saying earlier, talking about ListOff and kind of the thought process behind it is that the quality of the product is the people themselves.
Yeah.
That's where the real
Yeah.
intrinsic value of these shows is that you should really like the people you're watching on stage because they're good, funny people. We have a lot of really funny, good people
where
doing
the quality
stand-up.
of Westport Weekly is the jokes. That's all you can sell them on.
Exactly.
And you're not guaranteeing.
I can't guarantee the jokes. Yeah. Not yeah. And so it's just a real challenging thing.
Yeah.
And I it's a really valuable experience, and I'm already learning so much. But yeah, I think it might. I know something is gonna have to fall by the wayside. I know one of the things, at least one of the things I'm doing, is gonna have to kind of like shrivel up and die. You know, like if I'm planting seeds and watering them all, like
they're not all gonna grow and live.
And I think that might be the one that dies. And it's sad, and I wish it wasn't the case. And I'm sure there's something I could do, but I just don't know how. Like, maybe McCormick's would give me $200 a month to just call it the McCormick's open mic. You know what I mean? Like, and that would be great.
Yeah.
But I just, that hasn't, I don't know how to make
yet.
something like that happen. I have no idea how to go about getting money for saying someone's name or, and I don't know that anybody would be interested in doing that for a show that doesn't have a consistent audience.
Yeah.
Yet. Yeah.
Or have.
And it's that catch-22 where I can't get a consistent audience until I can promote, and I can't properly promote until I have a consistent product, and I can't have a consistent product until I have a consistent audience.
No. I understand.
Snake eating itself.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, man. This has been...
I hope I didn't talk too much.
I might cut some of it out.
That's fine.
No, it was good, though. I think like a lot of it's honestly good.
Yeah.
If I thought somebody would listen to all of it, I want to play it.
I understand.
I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it.
I have.
Who knows?
A pretty notorious knack for just.
What's crazy is there's more
over-talking.
stuff that I'm interested in still,
Yeah.
but like I should end this.
Yeah, no, I get that. I understand that. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being on, man. There you have it, Evan Christian Goldt. I told you that man can talk, and I didn't cut any of it out. I swear. Well, except for the bit in the middle where he needed to use the restroom. But I thought you'd appreciate not having to listen to a couple minutes of silence. Man, all the hard work Evan is putting into this comedy scene in Kansas City is truly impressive. So please go see his show ListOff Tuesdays in November, and come out Monday nights to the Westport Coffee House Theater and see the Westport Weekly Comedy Show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and like IX Productions on Facebook for more behind-the-scenes comedy content. All right, well, that's it for this week. Hope to chat with you again soon.